Okay, so parenting teenagers. So I've also put something called adolescent development. I've got a few questions, and I hope that people can answer in the chat. So when you think of teenagers, what words come to mind? So can you just, in your chat, just put the words that come to mind when you think of teenagers? I'll just give us a minute to do that. Okay, so a few things are coming in, yeah, great. Hormones, yeah. I've got developing, rebellious, yep, self-opinionated, yep. Young adults, yep, challenging, confusion, delicate minds, nightmares sometimes, yep, turbulence, passion, potential, growth, creative, yeah. Lots of good comments there. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so I've also, just go. Okay, so I've also got another question. Is it okay to say sorry to your teenager? So you might have upset them or offended them. Is that okay? Yes. So 1, yes, and 2, no. So let's get a few comments in the chat. Okay, so I can see, yeah, I can see quite a few. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so on to my next slide. So, sorry, I'm trying to use my keyboard to answer. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to share a few things about parenting and adolescence as well. So adolescence is a developmental period during which dependent children grow into independent adults. This period usually begins at age about 10 and lasts until the late teens or early 20s. For some people, it carries on even longer than that. And during adolescence, children undergo striking physical, intellectual, and emotional growth. And I think those are some of the answers that I've received already. So thank you for your participation. Okay, so I liken adolescent to the stages that, you know, a caterpillar goes before it becomes the butterfly. So it goes through sort of the egg, then the larva, the chrysalis, and then, you know, fully before it becomes a full adult. And I think adolescent is very much similar to that process. So part of the role of parents is actually preparing them so that they can one day blossom as independent butterflies and, you know, fly the nest, so to speak. Okay, so I've listed a few characteristics of adolescent development. So I said it begins at sort of 10. Some people start later, 13 until 18 plus. So some of the characteristics are changes to the body. So there are periods for girls, you know, pimples or spots, voice breaks for the boys, puberty, transition, as some people have mentioned. There's evidence of risk-taking behavior, hormones, lots of them. There's that need for independence. There's also that experimentation with, say, drugs and sex, but also boundaries. They wish to push boundaries in some cases, and friendship. So they really would like to spend more time with their friends and their peer groups rather than their parents. I'm also going to carry on sharing some more characteristics of adolescent development. So young people also use a lot of social media. So I had a quick question actually in this use of social media. What do you think the most used medium? So can you put in the chat what you think is the most used social media that young people use? So is it YouTube? Is it Facebook? Is it Snapchat? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? I'll try to think of this that I might never know. Twitch is another one my son uses. So, okay, so I'm seeing quite a few. So Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. Okay, yeah, thank you. I think just before lockdown, it probably was YouTube, but actually YouTube is still the most used because you can watch a lot of content on YouTube. And I think not just even just young people, children from sort of ages 8 or even younger than that also use YouTube. So I would actually say that YouTube is probably the most used medium because they can watch stuff on it, funny videos, all sorts of pranks and all sorts of interesting things. But another thing that we've seen as a result of this adolescent development is an increase in mental health, mental ill health, mental well-being, there's been an increase. And some people sort of say, psychologists might say things like social media, but also other influences that have increased mental health, ill health in young people. There's also an increase in cyberbullying. As we know, young people spend a lot of time online. So as a result, whereas in the past, bullying might take place on the school playground, but now because of social media, they can be followed home because they know where, they can access them on their phones. Another characteristic of adolescent development is the brain. And actually, again, the frontal lobe is not fully developed on young people until about the age of 21. And I think that's one of the reasons that you notice that some of the decisions they might make might not be, they're amazing, but they might not have been thought through due to that part of their brain. And then there's also exploratory stage as well, just as people have mentioned. So those are some of the characteristics of teenage. And I just wanted to really encourage parents or carers or anyone here to say that it can be quite a difficult stage. But actually, if we go back to that image of the caterpillar that I shared previously, you are preparing them for the journey into adulthood where they're independent. And those skills that you've taught them throughout the years, they're able to call upon that. So regardless of how difficult it might be at this time, it will pass. I mean, I'm a mother to a 15-year-old son and actually another 8-year-old. So for me, sometimes I say that I almost have two teenagers because the 8-year-old, he's 8 going on 15. So he wants to be big and grown up like his brother. He wants a mobile phone and he can't understand why he doesn't have a mobile phone. He also wants to be able to do lots of things that his big brother is doing. And I do have to constantly say to him, no, you're still 8. So enjoy being little and enjoy being 8. So on the next slide, I have shared, so back to what I was talking about, social media, that this stat is a little bit old. So I think due to lockdown, it's probably actually changed a lot more. So this stat was back last year. So it says nearly 1 in 5 teenagers spending 4 hours or more online every day. How many minutes, if any, would you say that you spend online? And so I really want to challenge parents about it as well, that children do what they see you do. So how much time are you spending online? So on here, as you can see, is a YouGov study that talks about children aged 8 to 12 spend like a minute to, they spend less time online. And if you look at the 4 hours or more, so some teenagers are on their phones for up to 7 hours, some even longer. With my son, for instance, in their school, they're not allowed phones. So he's allowed his phone in the morning when on his way to school, but the moment he gets to school, he's not allowed his phone. And then he has it, and I ensure that at the end of the day, when he's going to bed, he plugs it in downstairs and leaves it in a safe place, because social media and phones can be so distracting that sometimes a lot of children are going to school really sleepy and tired because their phones have woken them up at night and they've checked it and they're unable to go back to sleep. So I really encourage, if you can, to ensure, and I'll encourage parents to model that as well, where perhaps you all put your phones, I put mine at night, I put it on flight mode, just so that I'm not disturbed. And I really encourage parents to model that. But also the other things that we do with phone usage is that we usually say when we have dinner at the table, I say to children, no phones at the table, both for adults and children. Nobody's allowed their phones. And it gives us time to really talk without distractions. And so I encourage you to do the same, really modeling that, because as parents, we model exactly what we want to see our children do. Okay, so some stats around mental health. So I mentioned about mental health. Now, there's been an increase in mental health over the years. So last year, I completed a youth mental health first aid course. And it was really interesting to see how things like depression, anxiety have really increased over the years. And there's been talks about social media being the cause of it, sometimes family breakdown, but there are lots of reasons that have led to that. But I will definitely say that it does increase a lot during adolescence. And it's important as parents that we notice our young people when they start to feel withdrawn and they start to not be themselves. So really question and check what's really going on with them. I mean, I know that COVID has really brought on a lot of anxiety at the moment for parents and also for young people. So really just encouraging people to check in with them. So how are they feeling? Talk to them about their feelings, talk to them about, how can you support them? Because if we can treat some of those mental ill health issues in the earlier stages, it means that it stops it getting into bigger and greater things. In 2015, so this is a stat about 5 years old, 43% of young people aged 10 to 15 in the UK reported having been bullied. So as I mentioned, the bullying might be at school or it might be online. And of this, 29% reported their self-harm. So there's also an increase in self-harm, and not just amongst just girls, because I think historically we've almost thought that self-harming was just done by girls, but actually boys are also self-harming. Some stopped going to school, some developed an eating disorder, and 12% ran away from home as a result of bullying. 30% had suicidal thoughts, 14% used drugs and alcohol, and 6% engaged in risky behavior. So I really encourage you as parents to really check in with your young person, get to know what's going on for them, so that when you see behavior that is very different, then you understand where the behavior is coming from and you can support them appropriately. At the end of the slide, I will share a few resources where you can get help and signpost and get the appropriate help for your children. Okay, so I've got a few things to support parents. So I would say those raising teenagers is to have a plan, work with your young people, sit down as a family, have a plan and say, okay, this is our daily plan, or this is our weekly goal, and ensure that the things that are really important, because actually young people still need their sleep, even as much as when they were babies. So you might notice that some young people might stay up really late to say midnight or even 2 a.m. in the morning and then sleep till like 2 p.m. in the afternoon, but ensuring that they get good sleep. And I think turning off those devices means that they're able to get their sleep without interruption. Nutrition is really important, ensuring that they eat healthy and balanced diet, because a lot of times young people don't really want to eat, they want to eat sweets and junk. But by you ensuring that at home, say the evening meal, for instance, or even things like breakfast, ensuring that they're having that, then it means that they have the right nutrition that they need for their growing bodies. Exercise is also really important. It helps them deal with some of the aggression, some of the hormones that are there. So things like swimming, I mean, unfortunately now we can't really do any of that due to lockdown, but even cycling. So what we did, my boys, during the first lockdown, I made sure that we were able to go out daily and just ride the bike. And just ride the bike. So other things, negotiation skills. I've got something called the sandwich of discipline. So where you say a young person has done something, you start off with praise, telling them how amazing they are, say how wonderful they are. And then you go on to whatever it is that they've done wrong. Maybe they haven't cleaned their room or they haven't done their chores. And then you finish that with a bit of encouragement again. Because I think young people go through that stage where they're really self-conscious and they, especially if maybe they're depressed, they might feel like, anything you say might be criticism. So really just think about that sandwich of praise. Consistency, so be consistent with the boundaries and also be reliable with the things that you say. So if you promise to do something, you've got to stick to it. I always say children are like elephants, they never forget. So when you say you're going to be there and do something, ensure that you stick to that. But also things like rewards. So at the end of the week, it could be pocket money, it could be a treat, the things that they like, but also get young people involved in chores. It could be things like sweeping, taking out the rubbish, cooking, small meals that they can do. Other things that I've also put there, the third thing is love language. Get to find out yours and also get to find out your young people's. I've put the link at the end. Gary Chapman, who wrote the 5 Love Languages, he has a quiz on his website called 5 Love Languages Quiz for Young People. And it's really important. And I did that with my son and I really understood. I was like, that's why he didn't feel loved, because he liked gifts. And when he wasn't necessarily getting gifts and things, he felt no one loved him. And other things that were his own love language. So find out what it is for your children. Another thing I've put is affirmations. So affirm yourself, but also then affirm your children. In lockdown, we did a lot of things around gratitude. What 3 things are we thankful for daily? And we would write that. And then another thing that I have is find a supportive network. Raising teenagers is really difficult. So, but if you have a supportive network, then they're able to support you if you're really struggling. I also have friends of children, people that their children are much older, so that if I'm struggling, I'm able to get perspective from them. Because I think when you're in the moment, it can be overwhelming. But when you have those supportive network, you can talk to them and say, what do you think about this? And they can clarify. If you're feeling overwhelmed, ask for help. It's okay not to be okay. Therapy, counseling, self-care for yourself, and don't feel guilty about it. Like I mentioned about social media, monitor the use, give them space. Because that was one thing I asked my son. I said, tell me, what will be the advice that you give to parents listening today? He said, give your teenagers space. And then finally, I said, pick your battles, because I really do think that it's important that you pick your battles. And with your young people, some things you have to really think, is this really, really important right now? In the grand scheme of things, how important is this issue right now? Is it going to make or break our relationship? So I really, really encourage you as parents to pick your battles. Other things I've also put here are, and I'm just going to go on to the next slide. Be present, so make time, be intentional. So it could be every day saying you're going to spend 10, even as little as 10 minutes with your young person, asking them, how are you? What was good about today? Who made you smile? Who made you laugh? What wasn't so good? What went well? So we do a thing at the table sometimes where we say one thing that went well and one thing that didn't go so well. Where remain calm. I know that's so hard, especially when your young person is sort of kicking off, but really stay calm. Other things that they might struggle with: identity. Who am I? Where do I belong? They might want to fit in with their friends. But really just do that thing with them, search, really find out who are they and help them to explore meaning in and purpose in their life. Play games. So we do a thing sometimes where we play board games or Jenga or even Uno. And you really see a different side. I mean, my older one is very competitive, so that comes out when we play games. He always wants to win. Get to know them. Other things, teach them about money, finances, budgeting, because young people, if you teach them, then in the future they can make positive decisions with their money. Don't nag too much about their rooms. Oh gosh, your teenager's room or their clothes. I'm the type that will say, you're not coming out with me in those chicken bottoms. So, lots of humor as well is really important. Be kind and considerate, and also tell them that you love them and that you're proud of them. I think one thing lockdown showed me was how important our children are. And then I put a few links at the end. Young minds are good if you need some help in terms of mental health understanding. Youthscape are another youth charity. They've got a lot of resources for young people. And then Lily Joe Project. So I will probably send the link on to Dr. Mike and he can pass it on. And then Tomorrow's Child TV. Also, another one thing I wanted to share, as a mom of boys, I do find boys love games. And there's a website called Tammy Gaming, and it talks about how you can really bond as a family over games. At first, I was a bit like, I don't know about that because I'm not really a gamer, but they are just really interesting things you can do and help you to have that relationship and really understand your young person as well and the kind of games they play. And you can really ask them questions. Why do they play that? Another resource I put is a guide to growing up, honest conversations about puberty, sex, and God by Sarah Smith. Is a book that I have and went through with my son, where we were talking about puberty and the different sides of growing up. It's written from a young person's perspective, so it's really helpful. And then finally, the 5lovelanguages.com quizzes that you can take online. And finally, don't give up on your teenager. And I know that sometimes you literally want to beat them up or kill them, but don't give up on them, because young people still need us. And sometimes they might act like they don't need us, but they need us even more so. Especially, they need to know that they can come to us when life is tough or when they're going through a difficult time. But if we don't have that relationship, then it'll be really difficult to do that and to build that conversation. So take time, get to know them, talk to them, and don't give up on them. And also, as a parent of a teenager, this too will pass. You will look back in a few years and your young person will have come through the other side. So I really, really encourage you to look after yourself, but also don't give up on your young person.